If I could have everyone's attention, please. We have a very long agenda, so we're going to get started. We're going to quickly go through the regular agenda, and then I'm going to ask, we need to have a short executive session, so before we go into the work session agenda, I'm going to ask council for a brief executive session after we go over the regular agenda. So starting off, we have the invocation, I believe, have you spoken to him?
Today, yes, he's
Okay.
going to be here.
Have announcements, pledge to the flag, ceremonial matters. We have a recognition of the Snellville Police Explorers and the resolution for the Amy Copeland weekend. Roger Lucas has tendered his resignation from the Planning Commission, so he will not be sworn in tonight. We have approval of the minutes. Does anybody have any corrections for the minutes for May 14th or June 4th? No. We will have Mr. Ewing here tonight to give us a soundbite since he was not here during his last presentation.
Can we have somebody perhaps ask him just to keep it?
Thank you, Melissa.
How long did that take?
He's got it condensed to 45 minutes.
Good.
We have Ms. Ferris will be here for the Board of Appeals report, and Ms. McAloon. She planning on being here?
Should be here.
For the stat report. And we then have a consent agenda. We won't actually have any discussion over the consent agenda. The approval of the surplus list, approval to return the K-9 vehicle service, and then the contract with USA Pools, which is a contract we previously approved, but we named the wrong vendor, and that was my fault. So, consideration and action on the approval of the strategic action agenda for Market Street Services. That there is something with that I'd like to briefly discuss in an exec session. So then if we could come back to that. Unless anybody has anything they want to say now. We then have the first reading on adoption of the budget for fiscal year 2013. That is the proposal we came up with at our work session at Summit Chase. I know there were some questions by citizens. I don't know if any of those people are in the work session about wanting to ask the council questions on the budget. On first reading, we don't take any comment or questions, but this will be on our June 18th special call meeting for public hearing when the public can ask questions, and they can also email us questions. There is a hard copy of the budget available here at City Hall, and it also, I believe, it's online now. It's on Crunchy. Anybody have anything on the budget? Then I will be removing my nomination of Roger Lucas for reappointment to the Planning Commission. The fencing for the park and for the community garden, the bids are not ready, so we need to postpone those. If we could postpone the park one indefinitely, and do you want to give a date certain for the community garden one?
Yeah, because what we talked about, we're going to be able to send some information out. Should be able to get those corrected back.
Okay.
So.
And so you want that on the July 8th meeting?
Yeah.
July 8th. So if I could get a motion at that time to postpone those two items. Consideration and action on Assistant City Manager and Chief of Police employment agreement. That will also need to be discussed in exec session. So we'll come back to that. The Lakeside Pavilion repairs, we did get those bids back. We have some issues with those and we need to correct them.
So we should be able to award that the next meeting.
So if I could get a motion to postpone that to the July 8th meeting as well.
I need to know what the problems were.
And speaking with Tony, the bids that came back, that all the information wasn't included. Then the one from Parker Young, and then they weren't itemized in the other one. But there were several things in, if you got that email, that weren't included. So what we're going to do is contact both of them and let them know what the issues were, to have them resubmit it with those corrections, so we can go ahead and make the award instead of rebidding it or anything.
This thing has been dragging on. I really like to see it come to an end. It's costing us money every weekend, but this isn't available for rental.
What we could do is we can put it on the June 18th agenda, and then we can get, if we can get these answers back. If we can't, then we'd have to postpone, but we should, if we can, we'll do that.
So if I can have then a motion to postpone till June 18th. If that gives them enough time to respond. Consideration action resolution for appointment of prosecuting attorney. Chief, you want to give a brief?
a law went into effect that says that we have to provide to the prosecuting attorney's council the authority and where we appointed a solicitor or prosecutor for our municipal court. Our charter authorizes the city attorney to provide that, but we don't have anything specific for that, so we have a resolution that's got to be adopted, and then we can forward that information on. It's just basically a full form account thing.
Same girls, it's
Right, it's just a pro forma kind of thing to comply with the statute.
And so the charter, actually, the mayor appoints just like the city attorney does, but this isn't appointing this is just giving the authority of creating the position.
Right.
Does that make
We're
sense?
just renaming it, right, basically?
We are, and the thing I was concerned about with it is once you get a state authorization for a specific position, if we don't comply with the state statute, there's a question about the jurisdiction and actions of that official. So we're just doing what the state asked us to do.
Next, resolution to waive the fee for alcohol consumption outside a licensed establishment. This was a little misleading to me, but it's my understanding this is only for the Amy Copeland weekend. We'll come back then and amend the ordinance. Had some questions about a resolution being able to amend the fee schedule, but this is only for the Amy Copeland weekend. Does anybody else want to?
We can waive the fee.
I didn't
Then
think
but we do need to get a resolution.
It's already
Right.
done and ready to go, so I was hoping it could just, y'all usually put it on your work session agenda, so if that resolution could just be on the work session agenda for the next meeting, it'll be ready to go.
And then special use permit application is for the same thing. Anybody have any questions over that? Consideration action award of contracts for stormwater drainage projects. We also had an issue with these. Chief, you wanna?
Basically, we have withdrawn from a bid that we had with one particular construction company based on some problems that they had on one job. And these are the two remaining things, according to Tony, the lapse in time from the time of the award to provide them, we may have to do another RFP for it.
So if I can have a motion to postpone that till July 8th or longer?
Probably till July.
Yeah,
Postpone July
I mean,
8th.
they're done, we just have to receive.
July 9th, whatever that Monday is.
Yes, it's the 9th.
Right, sorry. Okay, and so that would complete our, regular agenda. I guess since everyone's over here, we'll go quickly through the work session agenda, and then we can go to exec session. We asked Mr. Opal if he could postpone his, detailed report, but he does have a couple things to tell us about open meetings.
I do. When we take it up, one of the critical ingredients of it is that controls the flow of information, and your responsibilities is the designation of a person to be your custodian of records for purposes of open record requests. And we have to designate that for it to be effective. Melissa is usually the one, the city clerk is usually the one that I communicate with. I'm assuming it would be her. It would be nice to have a second person designated to follow up in the event she was on vacation as the designated person. And then just make it a policy that all of them have to get shuffled to our designated custodian. The second thing, and we'll do that if that's okay with everybody. And with the second one is a question about having a display on the green while the farmer's market is going on, where council members would gather to take public comment. And coffee, I think, is talked about. There's a specific exception in the new, when you can all be at social events together without it being a violation. That's a specific set out. You can't conduct business, but and discuss business in a formal way, but as long as you're there at the social event, the fact that all of you are there, you don't have to post a meeting and notify. You can be in the same place. You can also travel together. You just can't discuss business. The only way you do that.
And there's a forum at GMA, I believe it's Monday or Tuesday, I can't remember, and the Attorney General is gonna be there discussing the new open, it's not something you had to register for, it's open, so if anybody wants to attend that, if you're still in Savannah.
What's the date of that? It's on
I
Monday.
can't remember if it's
Yeah,
Monday or
Savannah, right?
Tuesday, I can't remember.
Apparently, we don't have to advertise where it is.
Resolution, the Snellville Public Arts Commission. I emailed y'all after the last council meeting. We discussed some changes that needed to be made to the resolution. I met with Mr. Powell today, and he took some notes and made some additional changes and clean it up a little bit. Does anybody have any comments that they want to give to Mr. Powell as far as the way it's
Just to see the cleaned up one before we,
the youth soccer update on the current program. We all got an email from Mr. Powell about the current contract that is expiring in August. So I would suggest that we put this on our July 8th, July 9th work session, and then come for a vote. We need to decide two things. We need to decide whether we want to renew with Blue Springs, and if we do, if we're going to have a rental policy. If we're going to be in the business of field usage and renting, then we need to come up with an actual rental policy.
can I ask that this goes to Parks and Rec, the people that are much more closely associated with it than us, and then let them bring their recommendation to council?
It's fine. We do have to move on this rather quickly though, because the contract is up in August.
Has council always voted on this?
We didn't, we had our own soccer program until last year. So it
Well,
just became an issue.
Last year was the Parks and Rec put this together.
Right.
Yeah, I think that, again, those people are much more closer to this than we are, and they know all the ins and outs of it, but we don't. I don't think council needs to drop something down on them that's unacceptable to them. I'd rather have their recommendation come to council and then council vote, if that's possible.
Do Blue Springs does have, David Bird is here, I don't know if you want to give him about 5 minutes to just give any input. If you don't, that's fine, but he is here.
I really don't, I think you need to have the input, and you need to tell us what's best for your department.
So we need to put this on the Parks and Rec Advisory Board?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But it'll
That's my
have to be
opinion.
on the
That's not
second
council.
meeting in July. If we're gonna reauthorize the contract with Blue Springs, it has to be on our agenda for the second meeting in July, because it expires
We'll
in
have a
August.
special meeting in June, so.
Can I just take a second and comment on two things that really aren't related to soccer, but it is related to contracts, and it came up in this circumstance where the exclusivity provision, you can see that it was added in an off year. You voted on it in 2010, it was changed in 2011 with the exclusivity being added into it. It's a little bit of a, how we handle contracts and keep the council informed about what the contracts look like. According to your procurement ordinance, $9 spending contract provisions can be changed by the city manager. That's one of those things that's authorized. And my recommendation is to change that slightly so that it's like with the pools contract, it got changed slightly from the last time we met. We put it back on the consent agenda not to create debate or issues, but so that it went out in your package, you got to see it. There were some non-really significant changes, but it was a different contract from the original one. I want it blessed again and authorize the mayor to sign it. So my recommendation is that those things, that all those contracts at least get put back on your consent agenda before they become final. And that all the executions are subject to that final consent agenda approval.
Would it go a step further? If the council approves the contract, any changes in that contract, I would believe, would have to be approved by council also. If I hear what you're saying in 2010, we approved the contract. 2011, that contract was changed, but it didn't come before council, it was changed by the city manager.
Right, and there has always been a little confusion in the way you dealt with your contracts in that area. And my preference is, and I've talked about it with everybody, we don't want to slow down the process, but we do want to make sure all of it gets back in front of council so they can see
Absolutely.
what the changes are.
Is that, our procurement policy, is that in writing somewhere?
It is.
And so if we could put that maybe on our next work session. I also noticed the contract wasn't signed by the mayor, it was only signed by Mr. Treadway, but our charter requires all contracts to be signed by the mayor.
Right,
So
right.
if we could maybe get council copies of that procurement policy and put it on our next work session. So that brings us to the referendum on package stores. I know we had discussed this in some emails, there were some questions. I asked Mr. Powell to give us a memo about what the actual legal requirements are. We all went through that. Unless anybody has any questions, I don't anticipate any further action on this. Firearms in city parks. I do have an email, and I'll ask Melissa to copy it and get it out to everybody. It's from Mayor Perkle of Sugar Hill. Apparently, the state legislation, in all their wisdom, passed a new gun ordinance gun law that will allow people to carry weapons without a gun license. It's not considered a concealed weapon in certain areas. Y'all heard about this, I think it was last year. One of the areas is city parks, and so in Sugar Hill, they had an issue with a gentleman with a gun there that wasn't licensed. And he unfortunately wasn't doing anything wrong, even though it scared some children because of the state law. The state law says unless the city steps in and regulates that they're allowed to have guns without a license, it's not considered a concealed weapon in city parks. So Sugar Hill has started, they're looking at it and making legislation. I just asked that we have Mr. Powell look at it and suggest some legislation for Briscoe Park. I'm all for people having the right to carry their weapons, but we want to make sure everybody's doing it responsibly.
We don't wanna hand them out at the gate.
So I
Unless,
will.
of course, they're necessary.
I'll have, Melissa make y'all a copy of this, and I'll just ask, you wanna put it on the July 9th, or you wanna wait until the second meeting in July? July 9th, a work session, is that okay? Refinance of the city